This morning I was sitting on my back porch thinking about the resurrection, Easter Sunday, and thinking about my friends who feel that maybe highly intelligent, rational people kind of lose their mind during this time of the year, that they believe this guy named Jesus rose from the dead. If you feel that way, if you're one of my friends that fall into that category, I want to ask you to step back and just look at the facts. Here are the facts. Historically, we know this guy named Jesus lived. He performed signs and was immensely popular among the people. We know that in his rise to popularity, he upset a lot of Jewish leaders. Those Jewish leaders prompted and kind of instigated the Roman leaders to crucify Jesus on a cross. Jesus died. The Romans were very good at their jobs. They put him in a tomb and he was buried, and 3 days later, that tomb was empty. Those are the facts. Those are historically demonstrated not only through Christian literature, but also extra-biblical and non-Christian literature alike. We know these things happen. The question is why? The only question on the table is not what happened in a general sense, but why was the tomb empty? Did Jesus come back to life in fulfillment of all the different prophecies that pointed to his life, that his life was consistent with? I mean, I think when we look at it reasonably, it is a reasonable deduction to believe that Jesus literally rose from the dead. Why? Well, first, we know the Romans were good at crucifixion. There's no account in history of someone being crucified and surviving. So the reality is Jesus was dead. He didn't just pass out. He wasn't misdiagnosed, nothing like that. We know also that women were not considered credible witnesses in a court of law in the early church during that time of the first century. So why on God's green earth, if you were manufacturing a story, would use women as the first eyewitnesses of the resurrection to give testimony, unless you were trying to give an accurate historical account? We also know that these disciples who at one point in time were terrified. I mean, they're literally scattered to the wind. They don't know what's happening. Their leader is gone. Within just a matter of weeks, go from being these scared people to being triumphant and confident and willing to stand before some of those powerful leaders in the known world at that time and give testimony to their belief that Jesus was alive. Why? What changed in them? I mean, we have to think just a few weeks earlier, Peter was denying Jesus before a servant girl. I mean, someone who had no power or authority over him, and yet he's terrified. What changed? What changed was over 500 people claimed to have witnessed him over a period of 40 days being risen from the grave. I mean, when we look at that among other issues and we take the whole account into consideration, it is reasonable to believe that the tomb was empty because he has risen, and he has risen indeed.